Welcome to Check This Out, podcast for kids.
And they're grown-ups, where we explore people, places, ponderings, and past moments from history that shape the world around us. My name is Amy Contreras.
And I'm Cece.
When talking about inventors and scientists, we would be missing out on a big player if we didn't talk about Albert Einstein.
I know him.
You do? What do you know about him?
I know he was a really smart scientist.
That is true. Do you know anything else about him?
He had crazy hair?
Well, he was partly famous for his crazy hair look, so that is also technically true. But beyond his sweet hairdo, do you have any idea why so many people know who Albert Einstein is or the impact he had on our world?
I have exactly no clue.
Fair enough. Well, then today's episode is going to be great for you. We are going to learn about who was Albert Einstein, why we remember him as a great scientist, his impact on the world, and important things to know about him.
So we aren't talking about too much today then?
Ha ha ha. Where should we start, Cece?
I want to know why Albert Einstein is so famous. I know he was a scientist, but why do we talk about him?
Honestly, a fantastic place to start, Cece. Albert Einstein was one of the most influential scientists of the 20th century. He developed something really important called the theory of relativity.
What's the theory of relativity?
It's pretty complicated and very science-y, but let me try to break it down. There are technically two theories of relativity. Einstein came up with his first theory of relativity called the theory of special relativity way back in 1905.
That was over 120 years ago. Can you believe it?
I know, it's crazy. And this theory of special relativity said basically that no object can travel as fast as light. So that kind of makes speed of light the speed limit of the universe. The theory of special relativity also showed the scientific community, and eventually the world, that mass and energy are the same physical entity and they can be changed into each other.
Okay. That's kind of confusing.
It is a lot. And like I said, it's very science-y. Just know that this matters for how we understand the universe.
But there is a second part, right, Mom?
Yep. And this one is called the theory of general relativity. Einstein came up with general relativity in 1916.
This part of theory is all about gravity.
Yeah, and gravity is one of the fundamental forces in the universe. But gravitation is actually a very weak force. So the theory of general relativity basically describes big physical events like the movement of planets or the birth and death of stars, black holes, and the evolution of the universe. So basically, it helps us understand how all that works.
That is cool and confusing, but how did that make him famous?
Very fair, because science is coming up with cool theories all the time that we never heard of. But what happened is Einstein showed that space and time are woven together in ways that scientists had never realized before. Today, a lot of people know about the theory of relativity through the equation of E equals mc squared.
But Mama, that doesn't explain how he became famous.
Fine, something happened that made him a household name.
Was it him being in the Night at the Museum movie?
No, he was already dead when those movies came out. And it wasn't even him in Night at the Museum 2. It was little bobbleheads of Albert Einstein. Anyways, do you want to guess what it was that made Albert Einstein famous?
Yes, give me some options.
Okay, was it A, a rocket ship got lost in space and proved his theory? B, a black hole exploded and proved the theory of relativity? Or C, there was a solar eclipse that proved his proposed theory of relativity?
I have no idea.
Valid. I didn't know either before I did this research, but fun fact, it was C.
A solar eclipse.
Yes. So Albert Einstein became a household name in the year 1919, all because of a solar eclipse. In May of that year, British astronomers took pictures of a total solar eclipse. The sun's gravity bent the light of distant stars, which proved Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity.
Major newspapers ran front page stories on this discovery. This turned him into an instant global superstar.
Yeah, he became famous outside of the science world kind of overnight. And here's some other just good stuff to know. Albert Einstein was a German mathematician and physicist. So, like we already told you, he developed the special and general theories of relativity.
In 1921, he won the Nobel Prize in Physics.
Yeah, he won for his explanation of the photoelectric effect. In the 1930s, he moved to the United States after being targeted by the German Nazi Party. His work also had a major impact on the development of atomic energy. As he got older, Einstein focused on something called unified field theory.
He died in April 1955 when he was 76 years old.
Einstein is generally considered the most influential physicist of the 20th century. Now that you know what he's famous for and how he became well known, let me give you a little bit more background information on his life.
Good idea, Mama. Albert Einstein was born on March 14th, 1879 in Germany.
Yeah, he grew up in a Jewish family, which is why he eventually had to escape from the Nazis. His father was a salesman and engineer, and his mother ran the family household. Einstein had one sister named Maja.
She was 2 years younger than Albert. What was his childhood like?
He grew up in Munich, Germany, and he had a passion for classical music.
He played the violin?
Yup. And when he was 16, Einstein's family had to relocate to Milan, Italy because of his dad's business. So Einstein got left behind at a relative's house in Munich, Germany to complete his schooling.
But Einstein ran away 6 months later and followed his parents to Milan.
To Milan, yeah. And I mean, Cece, can you believe that one of the most famous scientists ever dropped out of school and ran away at 16?
I can't. Did he go back?
Of course he did, and I'll tell you more about that later. But him dropping out of school and leaving Germany was a big problem. His parents realized he could get into big trouble as a school dropout.
And he was a draft dodger.
Yes, so he became a draft dodger, which means he was avoiding getting drafted into serving in the army. So at 16, he's dropped out of school, he was a draft dodger, and he had no employable skills. Things were not looking good for Albert Einstein.
If I was his parents, I would have been very stressed.
Well, the good news is we know he got through it. And speaking of his childhood, Cece, did you know that Einstein often called out two big impacts when he was young that he later felt led him on a path to becoming a physicist?
Yeah, they are cool. The first was when he discovered a compass when he was 5 years old.
Yeah, he was totally blown away by the compass, that there were these invisible forces that could move the needles on the compass to point to north. This would ultimately lead to a lifelong fascination with invisible forces.
The second big inspiration came off when he was 12, and he got his hands on a book of geometry.
Yeah, geometry is a type of math. He read this book over and over and over again. Cece, can you imagine reading math or geometry books for fun?
No way, even though I do like math.
Yeah. But later in life, when he was an adult, he called it his sacred little geometry book.
So, did he eventually become a famous mathematician and scientist if he dropped out of school?
Well, twist, he went back to school.
Duh.
Einstein eventually attended the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. He enrolled in 1896. He was able to get in because he had amazing mathematics and physics scores on the entrance exam.
But he couldn't skip high school.
Yeah, he still had to complete his pre-university education first. So he finished high school in Switzerland. And then he received a bachelor's degree from Swiss Federal Polytechnic in 1900 and a PhD from the University of Zurich in 1905.
After school, he got a job working at a patent clerk.
A patent clerk, yes. And in January of 1903, he married a woman named Mileva Maric. And fun fact, she also studied physics. They had 2 children, Hans Albert and Edward. Both were born in Bern in 1904 and 1910. During 1905, he published 4 papers on physics, each of which would end up changing the course of modern physics.
In 1905 has a nickname in Einstein's life.
That's right, Cece. Let's see if our listeners can guess what it was. Was 1905 A, Einstein's miracle year, B, the year of 4, or C, the big 05?
If you said A, Einstein's miracle, you were right.
Yes. So from 1905 to 1915, he taught and researched his theories of relativity. In 1914, he moved back to Berlin, Germany, to focus entirely on research. As you know, he eventually became famous outside of the scientific community in 1919 when the solar eclipse happened that confirmed his theory.
I still don't get this whole theory.
It's super hard to explain if you're not a scientist, but here are a few ways that relativity shows up in our lives. So things like GPS technology uses this theory to work, and that's what tells us how to go around on maps. Magnets and magnetism are an effect of the relativism, and the theories explain things like why gold doesn't rust. And without Einstein's most famous equation, E equals mc squared, the sun and the rest of the stars wouldn't shine. Explaining that one is super complicated, very sciencey. You're just going to have to trust me on that.
Okay, so he helped us figure out a lot of other stuff.
Yes, basically. Albert Einstein also served as director of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Physics from 1913 to 1933. Einstein was a busy guy during this period of his life. He divorced his first wife in 1919, and he remarried a woman named Elsa in 1919.
Where did Einstein live?
Well, he was born and lived a lot of his life in Germany, but he also lived in Milan and Zurich. And like I mentioned earlier, he moved to Berlin in 1914, which is also in Germany. He traveled a lot. But in 1933, Einstein, whose parents were Jewish, fled Nazi Germany and came to the United States.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because remember, the Nazis were attacking and hurting Jewish people, so it wasn't safe for him anymore in Germany. When he left Germany, he moved to Princeton, New Jersey to become a resident scholar at the Institute for Advanced Study.
He became a U.S. citizen in 1940.
Yep, and Einstein's later years were spent studying quantum mechanics and trying to merge it with his theory of general relativity to formulate something called a unified field theory.
He had a busy educational life.
Albert Einstein was a world-changing physicist known for his wild hair and his curiosity. He showed us things that time and space are flexible. He proved that energy and mass are linked, E equals mc squared, and he won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1921.
His work still affects all of us today.
Einstein died of an aneurysm in 1955 at the age of 76.
That's too bad. Also, 76
is the opposite of 6'7". But Albert Einstein made a big impact on the world while he was here. Cece, should we wrap up with a poem to help us remember everything we learned about Albert Einstein?
Of course, we always end with a poem, Mom.
All right, here we go. The kooky guy with wild hair saw what the world saw and didn't care. He asked questions that rewrote the physics space, and his discoveries helped win a Nobel, first place. Einstein asked what if and chased the speed of light. He showed E equals mc squared and changed the unknown into sight. With curious thoughts, he bent space, helped rockets, and studied stars. He taught us to imagine big and push boundaries far.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Check This Out Podcast for Kids.
Here at the Check This Out podcast, we know there's a lot of information and it can be overwhelming to find accurate information. This podcast is a tool for you to help you do something called citing your sources. As you get older and do projects for school, you'll learn that certain types of websites or AI or information sources aren't verified or have evidence and documentation to back them up.
And check this out, we use verified sources to build the stories you hear about.
Verified sources are materials or information that have been confirmed for accuracy and credibility through an evaluation process. Our sources for this week's episode are Encyclopedia Britannica, Biography.com, National Geographic, Nobelprize.org, History.com, Time Magazine, and Physics Today. Thanks again for being with us here as we talked about Dr. Albert Einstein. Join us next week when we talk about another scientist or inventor.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Check This Out. See you next episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.